Dan Bartlett earlier today when we were he was doing an interview right after me or in between segments with me, said, well, we need to set the leak episode to the side. And the other day he said, well, no, I'm not going to talk about the Katrina part because that's internal deliberations. So I did find that very interesting.
Crossing off 9/11 in Iraq, and that's pretty much the entire presidency, is it not?
There you go.
Everybody else has reacted to this book. Here's your chance. You had rapped Richard Clarke when he came out just before the 2004 election for criticizing the president. Your question to him was, why wait so long? Why didn't this epiphany, this kind of public version of the epiphany, as a book, as an admission, as testimony somewhere, why did it wait till now? Why didn't it happen in some way in 2004, 2005?
Sure.
Or at
well, some of you mentioned earlier in one of those email responses, the one to the Huffington Post. But I went into this very much believing that the president was someone committed to being a bipartisan leader and that he was going to reach across the aisle and that he was going to change the way things worked in Washington, D.C. And I had high hopes that he would be able to do that. I was deputy press secretary during the build-up to the war. Like a lot of Americans, I wasn't certain about the rush to war, that it was the right thing to do. From a moral standpoint, I believe we should not be going to war unless it is absolutely necessary. And we now know that it was not absolutely necessary with regards to Iraq. It was not the grave and gathering danger that we portrayed it as. But I also, like a lot of Americans, was in that post-9/11 mindset and gave the president and his foreign policy team the benefit of the doubt. They had been widely applauded for what we had accomplished in the immediate aftermath of 9/11 in terms of going into Afghanistan and removing the Taliban and some of the other steps were taken. So, at that point in time, I was very much putting my trust in the president and his team and what was being said. As I left the White House, my last 10 months became a period of disillusionment, beginning with the Rove revelations that he had been involved in the leak episode, and ending with the revelation that the president had authorized the secret leaking of the National Intelligence Estimate, or at least parts of it. And so I was becoming more disillusioned. And then when I left the White House, I think I needed time to step back and take off that partisan hat and really reflect on this. I wanted to think through, why did things get so badly off track? And I did that. I spent a good bit of time thinking about this, writing the book. The book was actually supposed to be out a little bit sooner, but I wanted to make sure I got this right and that it reflected my views very clearly and that they were accurately reflected throughout the book. This book does. These are very much the views that I hold today after looking back and reflecting on things and learning from it.
All right. But Karl Rove says, and Dana Perino says, and quotes the president as saying, well, we never heard you express any of that stuff while you were here. Dan Abrams made a pretty good point here on his show last night. Whistleblowers or people who are not happy in an environment and see something wrong with it may make an internal attempt to correct things, or maybe they won't. But they don't usually stand there for 10 months batting their heads against the wall saying, I can make this better if I complain enough. What would have happened to you if you had gone to somebody above you and said, we are misleading the American public about, just fill in the blank, Iraq, Valerie Plame, even 9/11, we're misleading to some degree. What would have happened to you and to the government?
Well, it would have been interesting. I don't know, since that didn't happen, but there was not a lot of let me step back, I guess, a little bit, because and go back through some of that period again. Again, I continued to believe in this president as we were going into war in the immediate aftermath and when I took over as White House press secretary. But if you go back and read one of the chapters in the book, I talk about becoming White House press secretary, and I had some qualms. I delayed the announcement because I was concerned about whether or not I could do the job the way I wanted to do it. I was coming in the middle of, or as we were gearing up for an election year, and I knew that no one wanted to change the way things were being done, that they wanted to continue that position to continue basically operating the way it had been operating and not getting too out front of the president, not making a lot of news and so forth. So I did have those qualms, but I made the decision that this was a unique opportunity and made the decision to go forward with it.
One other reaction to this that I'd like to get your reaction to, Congressman Wexler, who suggested that after what you have said here, that you should be testifying to Congress about this administration. Do you agree with him, and would you?
One, I don't know that there's much more benefit to me going before Congress. I haven't really thought about it. I'm glad to share my views, and I share them fully in this book. I'm not sure exactly what he's calling for me to talk about, but everything I know about the leak episode is in this book, so I really haven't spent time thinking about it.
Scott McLellan also writes of, quote, propaganda, how he was used, how as a result you were used, when our interview continues next on Countdown. We rejoin you with former White House Press Secretary Scott McLellan's first primetime interview after the publication of his singular book, What Happened. All right, propaganda, you write of its use in the book, and you write of the supposed liberal media not really doing its job, for not being dubious enough, particularly about Iraq. But let me read this. Trying to make the WMD, while the administration was trying to make the WMD threat and the Iraqi connection to terrorism appear just a little more certain, a little less questionable than they were, quietly ignoring or disregarding some of the crucial caveats in the intelligence and minimizing evidence that pointed in the opposite direction, using innuendo and implication to encourage Americans to believe as fact some things that were unclear and possibly false, such as the idea that Saddam had an active nuclear weapons program, and other things that were overplayed or completely wrong, such as implying Saddam might have had an operational relationship with al-Qaeda. I think many in the media, liberal or otherwise, would rant and rave and say, no, this is not possibly true, and then tell you off the record, yeah, we did lay back, possibly for patriotic reasons, possibly for fear. A lot of things were involved. But I'm interested because there's no real mention of this in the book. What about the supposed conservative media, and obviously the symbol of that is Fox News? What was Fox News to you and to the White House? Was it a friendly cousin, a house organ? Was it the choice for funneling propaganda? What was it?
Well, I mean, there's certainly allies there that work at Fox News, and there's one story that I've told before. I didn't include it in the book, but during the Vice President's hunting accident, which was another disillusioning moment for me because I was out there advocating, get this news out and get it out now. And, of course, the Vice President said, no, and decided to send it to the website, or the Corpus Christi Caller-Times website, as opposed to getting it out widely to the national media.
I remember.
And caused me a lot of fun at the podium for about 3 days before the Vice President decided that he was going to go out and talk about this after a little nudging from the President. And we were standing outside the Oval getting ready to go in for a meeting, and he looked at me and he said, you know why I picked Fox News to do this? Because I want everybody else to have to cite Fox News when they do their reports. It's just kind of the attitude of the Vice President about things. We've seen his attitude, that kind of attitude, and other comments he's made when doing interviews as well, such as with Martha Raddatz when she asked him, and he responded with the so.
That people don't agree with this policy, and it was
right.
so.
And that was his answer.
Yeah.